Emma and David are two young people who were classmates in high school, and many envied their love that began from high school. Both of them had vision, created future, faced gains and losses, and all the time commitment. Emma was a teacher by profession, a remarkable, dedicated, and highly enthusiastic woman, both with her job and her students. David was an architect, and he was fully involving with the construction of buildings that are strong and durable. Their lives appeared to be filled with happiness until one day, it reversed. The storm and sorrow hit in the afternoon when the sun was still shining brightly. This is Emma's story. She was a driver who had to get from work to home, and an unnamed speeding truck hit her car while running the red light. They both survived, but Emma was injured on the spinal cord, and this resulted to her being a paraplegic. For example, the character saw spending her months in the hospital through surgeries and physiotherapy. All this time, David was there for her, hand in hand with her, telling her that he will not leave her no matter what happens, and that they will always get through this. Their lives took a new shift as Emma was going home when all these happened. He had vowed to be there for her, but as for the condition of Emma took hold of him, he was absolutely devastated. Caring for Emma was stressful, in terms of both the mental and the physical aspects. A girl named Emma was once an energetic child, but now she required care for activities they used to perform themselves. The place which used to be so cheerful and happy for both, now was just cold and stressful. Although David tried to be supportive, he was locked in. He didn't know how to express himself, and rather than get someone to talk to, he locked himself away. To say the least, the way that Emma saw the change is this one. In the last few months, he no longer gazed at her affectionately from within the comfort of his eyes, nor did he caress her gently and pat her affectionately. She discussed with him the problem, but they always started an argument. Finally, David simply dismissed her opinion or changed the subject. One evening, and at that time David was lying on the couch, watching a movie on his phone and browsing through his social media accounts, Emma was sitting beside him and looked at him and asked, "David, do you still love me?" David snapped out of his thoughts to be suddenly asked the question. "Of course I do," he said quickly, even though the words were utterly coming from his lips, from his heart. Emma did not insist, but she felt that something was off. There was something hidden. Their feelings became colder, and she was more afraid of it than the physical inability to move her body. One day, another party arrived, headed by Cleophas, the brother of the host. This spoiled the fun of the occasion. David again became drunk, and his actions appeared stranger by the day. He drew the attention of his supervisor and started coming to work early and left late, saying that many tasks needed to be completed. Being a loyal wife to David, Emma really wished to believe the words that her husband said to her, but she had some bad feeling deep inside her belly. Besides the physical barrier, she was lonely from him, as he had left her with a seemingly impossible task of treading normally and joining the society to which she had to forge her own path. It was during one of the late nights that David was at, Emma realized there was something amiss. David always placed his phone in the kitchen on the counter, and he receives a message from a lady called Rachel. Emma looked at the message. There were no obviously lewd words, only, "Can't wait for the appearance tomorrow, babe," but the tone of the message was felt wrong by Emma. Who was Rachel? And why so imposing on poor David to run round for her? Emma did not feel like arriving to a conclusion about what the letter contained. She tried to convince herself that she was only suspicious for no reason. David would not cheat on her. But for the first time in his political career, Vladimir now had a seed of doubt seething inside him and gradually day by day expanding. That is why attention to David's actions, Emma started to turn into him. He was substantially more discreet with his phone, stowing it either in his pocket or resting it, screen down, on the table. He appeared uninterested, detached, and every time Emma tried to engage him further, he got annoyed or dismissive. Emma could not stand the ambiguity anymore. One evening she made up her mind. While David was in the shower, she gets his phone and unlocks it. Sitting with her fingers shaking, the beats of her heart increased as she read through the messages he sent her. And there it was, dozens of love-filled messages between David and Rachel, of them planning to meet. It had all played out in Emma's mind, and now all her fears had come through. She hung up the phone and then almost threw it as if it were burning her. She was so full of tears. It's funny how she was feeling a cocktail of emotions that comprised of anger, heartbreak, and betrayal. Why would David do this to her? He knew how she felt about the kid. How could he do this to her after all that they have undergone through? With the aim of having the rationale behind it cleared out, Emma remained the rest of the night in her favourite position, wheeled to the window and fixed on the darkness outside. She held herself back from calling David and arguing with him at once. She was at loss for words. It broke her up, and she did not know how to rebuild the pieces. The next morning David pretended everything was normal, like he did not spend the night having sex with her. He gave the sweet kiss on the forehead to Emma before leaving for work, little knowing that he is already in public domain. Emma stood and watched him go. She did not feel anything. She was clinical. She completely remained silent around him for the next days as well, did not even argue with him. Instead of reacting, she largely retreated into herself, as David had done in the months after her accident. For instance, in the case of Emma, she had to seek the services of a therapist for her to deal with her emotions. She had never discussed the fact of extramarital affair with David, but now she wants someone to share her thoughts. Emma finally understood that she has been dwelling on an illusory of how things were between her and David. She used to think everything was possible for love, but now she came to realize that love cannot conquer all. David has deceived her and there is no way to return to the previous state. However, this comes out as a positive aspect of the story because as she battles with this reality, she also discovers a side of her that she never knew existed. She had been through a seriously life-changing accident, and there was no way she was going to survive this. There came a time that she also became keen on self-healing, and even her body too. Upon retirement, she took up art classes, something she had always wanted to do but never had the opportunity to before. She socializes with her former friends and met new ones, and made friends so that she finds people she can rely on other than her husband. At some point, Emma realized that she could no longer run away from the issue and it had to be addressed. One night David arrived home from what she could only tell was another late night at work. She called him to sit still. "I love you," she whispered, and then paused for a moment, and with almost military-like determination, "We need to talk." David turned to her, feeling that she was being deadly serious about what she was saying. "What's going on?" he said, trying hard to mask his concerned tone, carrying anxiety in his eyes. Emma looked at him, and then sighed heavily. I was stunned momentarily as I realized how much she knew about the situation. "I know about Rachel," she said. David's face was that of a pale man. He had frozen at hearing this piece of news. He cleared his throat and prepared to say something, but all he could do was stare at her. "I found the messages," Emma proceeded to say. "I know that you have known for like a while now." David sighed and his shoulders dropped. He raked his fingers through his hair. "Emma," I said, "I am sorry. I never wanted this to happen. I guess that's why it has been very tough for me, because generally I didn't know how to handle things that come my way." This was said and Emma listened, her heart now feeling a tremendous pain. "You said you would never leave me," David said Janie in a low tone. "I became paralyzed all on my own. Well, you decided to cheat, did you?" When Light said such words to David, he closed his eyes and tears appeared in them. "Yes, I do. It's all my fault. I am such a bad person. I really don't know what to say anymore." It was stated with a little vehemence. "I don't hate you, David, but I cannot be forced to continue in a marriage that is filled with distrust, for all people deserve better than that." David only nodded, averting his gaze to the floor with the kind of regret that could be seen in his eyes. "You do," he whispered. "Legends, word for word. You deserve so much better." They remained seated for a few minutes in silence, muted by the encounter they have had before. Instead of screaming in a grand finale, it was said that the two of them no longer wanted to be together. Over the course of the next several weeks, the two started the process of physically coming apart, referencing the song "This Will Be My Year" from the musical Something Borrowed. It was rather painful, but at the same time liberating. What Emma came to discover was that she was holding on to a man that was no longer alive, and that now she was being given an opportunity to define her life on her terms, not by paralysis or by betrayal. David left the house, and the house belonged to Emma. Month after month, the pain of betrayal within David was slowly replaced by the feeling of power. This was not to mention the unbelievable fact that she had merely lived through something unimaginable and came out of it a survivor. Finally, Emma and David's story had no happy ending or reunion because it was their redemption stories of each character at different stages of their lives. Emma had made the feat to slowly start a new life on her own after struggling with the preceding events in the story. David, whilst remorse for his actions, started seeking for ways on how he would start molesting himself and making him fit to be trusted again. They going in opposite ways, but both of them got the peace in their ways. Yet Emma, the fallen woman with her tale of spirit and courage and self-respect, was only starting.